Today we get to the question, how do we become wise? And if you're thinking like me, you'll think, well, finally, we're asking this question. Isn't this the whole point of the book? How to grow in wisdom? And yes, that's kind of the point. But there's a few things you have to know first, right? Like what foolishness is, what wisdom is, what some of the intricate little details in that actually mean. And obviously, we're only on day 17. So there's a lot more nuance to dig into whenever we actually start to become wise. First of which is right here. Understand the paradox. Wisdom is a paradox. To be chasing after something that in the end is only a gift that is given to you doesn't make sense at face value. Because if it's a gift that's just going to be bestowed upon you, why chase it all? Well, let me offer a perspective here. I'm playing off of what Keller says in the book, but I think that whenever we exert ourselves, whenever we really push hard to achieve something, that's what God wants from us. He wants us to chase after Him, after things that align with Him and with Jesus. And so, whenever we do that, and we may or may not achieve worldly things, of course. Maybe He blesses us with those things. Maybe He doesn't. But whenever we push, the push is what matters. The chase is what matters. Regardless of the worldly outcome, He rewards that when it's aligned with Him. And so I think that's kind of the point here. It's the chase is the paradox. And kind of like we've been meandering around, the path is the wisdom. And so in the chase, in the paradox, that's where the wisdom is attained. It's not like you get to the end of whatever you're pushing towards and then all of a sudden magically wisdom just drops into your brain. No, you're growing throughout that path, throughout that chase. And each individual small step or small maybe journey on that path where you maybe at one point you're pushing for a promotion at work. At another point, you're pushing to grow to become a good father. At a different point, you might be pushing to start a business. There's a lot of different little seasons of life. And as you pass through those, each one acts as, let's call it a little drop in the bucket. Or maybe it's a cup in the bucket of your life, where that cup of whatever pours into, as you're on that path, slowly pours into the bucket that contains your lifelong wisdom. So it plays back to the old wise sage, or why we think of wise as being an old person quality, because it is correlative with that. So the interesting thing too here is that there's a weird amount of hope in this paradox, where if we just had to work and work and work and work and work to potentially attain and earn our wisdom, then we would just work and work and work and work until we functionally just burn out. Or anxiety overrules our lives because we're just so unsure, uncertain of what's going to happen next. You think about the comparison between risk and uncertainty, where risk is a calculated maneuver and uncertainty is an unknown, uncalculable maneuver or event. Whenever you are pushing through these things and growing, it's if it were all up to us, we would just never be able to overcome that uncertainty. But if our growth and wisdom were all up to God, we wouldn't have to try and do anything. We'd be powerless to change anything in our lives. And I think this is a good illustration of the intersection of our free will and God's omnipotence, where we have to push to get to whatever level He's trying to encourage us to get to. But then at the end of the day, it's up to Him to reward us for those efforts. And He does. We see that very, very frequently, very, very consistently. That when you push, you get rewarded. Not to confuse earthly, worldly rewards as the only way that a reward is meaningful. That reward might be learning a lesson, or learning something new about yourself, or learning something new about your significant other, or learning something new about God. I'm excited that we started this section today. I'm excited to look and see how we become wise. And I'll see you tomorrow.